So as the election is heating up and more information is coming out, Labour claiming their manifesto is costed and the Conservatives is not, which is true. Labour's has in fact been costed. Apparently we can't borrow the money from Wonga, they're in administration now. With that, and the fact that the Labour Party aren't still able to truly gain any significant ground on the Conservative Party based on the polls, we're in a rather interesting position where I think we should just talk about something else. The election happens in 8 days now. That's going to be really tasty, by the way. I may have to stream on that. So while that's going on, I thought perhaps we would talk about someone else. Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott. Somebody who is vehemently against private education, which is somewhat ironic, I guess, for somebody who put their son through private school. Take the ladder out from underneath those that get the best chance, I guess. I don't fully understand why, but am I ever meant to understand it? James Abbott Thompson is the name of her son. He was once a civil servant. Well, last week, on Friday, police were called to the Foreign Office in Westminster, where he used to work. He was then charged with 2 counts of assault by beating an emergency service worker and a public order offence. Westminster's Magistrates Court heard on Monday that he spat and punched one officer and bit the thumb of another. These are some rather hefty accusations, which will not do Diane Abbott any favours. If he didn't do it, and he is cleared of it, then of course this doesn't matter. The optics are already out there. If he did do it, Diane Abbott needs to make him disappear fast, because this could be used against him. Now he has been bailed, and will appear back in front of magistrates in February, which means he has plenty of time to explain, let's say hypothetically he did it, explain why he felt the need to spit at one, punch the same officer, and bite the thumb of another one. I don't suppose his excuse will be that he needed hair gel in it, and I didn't punch him, I needed his face, and the other one, his thumbnail needed doing real bad, and I'm stressed. According to his LinkedIn page, because some people still use it, he got the position in the Foreign Office's diplomatic fast stream in 2014, worked there for 2.5 years, and then moved to the British Embassy in Rome until June of this year, and then went on a secondment to consultancy firm Hedward Mills. He's now on job seekers allowance. I'm kidding. Of course he's not. I'm sure his mother gave him a job because that's quite common amongst family who work in politics. The rather unfortunate assault that is alleged to have taken place all stems from the fact that he wanted to speak to someone at the Foreign Office who wasn't there. So naturally when someone isn't there, you attack. Now I think we can all agree he's had a somewhat decent career to date. Diplomatic-wise and civil service, that's all fantastic. His mother's reasoning for sending him away and putting him in private school is that she didn't want him to end up in the wrong crowd, and that he'd be subjected to peer pressure only in the wrong crowd, forgetting that peer pressure is literally everywhere, and that she believes that once a black boy is lost to the world of gangs, it is hard to get them back, with her telling the BBC that West Indian mums will go to the wall for their children. Ordinarily this kind of story would be one for Judge Moist, I know, but politics on the main channel is a no-no. As far as I'm concerned, with the crimes he's alleged to have done, if proven guilty, have a great time in community service, no doubt, because your mother will reduce the sentence somehow. In retrospect, this is all incredibly interesting to me because it is a hypocrite's son, and Diane Abbott has been somewhat silent during this campaign, which leads me to believe that she, like Emily Thornberry, is being told not to say much because their mouths last time wrote cheques that they couldn't really cash. And on the subject of Emily Thornberry, I do want to talk about her for a minute because she's actually quite a fascinating person. She's the one that put up during question time that Labour would negotiate a new deal and then campaign against it if elected, with her saying that it doesn't matter that Jeremy Corbyn won't say where he stands on Brexit, even though she and many of the Remainers have been sidelined from the election campaign, because they are trying, and you can tell, the Labour Party are trying to make it more than Brexit. A one-dimensional policy campaign is guaranteed to fail. You need to show you can do domestic policy, But after watching a number of interviews and live events, Labour are also trying to do the very much globalist agenda nonsense again. The thing that many people voted out of the EU for, to get away from even. While Emily Thornberry is an ardent Remainer, she supports Jeremy Corbyn's political neutrality on this. I say he's not being neutral at all, because he's taking no deal away. Leave is still an option, but there'll be no option for no deal. So leave can only happen with the deal they negotiate. And based on how weak they are already and how ridiculously badly costed their manifesto is, I'm inclined to believe their deal will be Remain. In fact, the ballot for another EU referendum will say Remain, 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 balk, Remain. Because that's what they do. They balk everything up. Understandably, Jeremy Corbyn has come under a considerable amount of fire because of that neutrality, but he's also come under a considerable amount of fire because of a recent Good Morning, or was it GMTV, This morning, that's what it was, appearance on TV. I can't show it, because I'll get flagged by ITV. They're as bad as LBC. Where he said, and I flipped the metadata, it doesn't work, where he said he was sorry for what had happened with the anti-Semitism in his party, because that solves it. Annoyingly, media, and of course that would include television, are all obsessed over these individual issues. I will say, while it is a massive failing on the part of the Labour Party to tackle anti-Semitism within its party, or properly address the accusations of it, I wanted to hear Jeremy Corbyn talk about policy on that show. And he didn't get a chance to, because Philip Schofield is autistic, which doesn't do Labour any favours if he can't talk about the rest of the policies, because people who are that autistic, much like that on the BBC, instead of focusing on the policy that we need to understand, take the opportunity instead to focus on optics. So I'm going to take the opportunity to rail on the BBC and ITV now. On a regular basis, the British people are accused of not fully understanding what it is they are voting on. Yet when presented with the opportunity to fully explain themselves, although they themselves don't quite know how they're going to articulate it because they don't prepare enough to shorten it down so that people can understand it, and it is comprehensive enough that people can fully appreciate it, they're not afforded the opportunity not just because of time constraints, but because the hosts of all those respective shows never fully allow them to finish speaking. They never do it, instead focusing on optics and sound bites, because they themselves are not interested in the policy, they're interested in the views. That, to me, especially for something like the BBC, is an absolute disgrace. I believe the presenter, if asking a question, should allow the person to answer the question, and wait for them to finish before they pick them up on details that they have failed to adequately answer, instead of interrupting when the person being interviewed, the politician, deviates. When the politician says that the public don't understand, it is entirely and also the fault of the media who fail to allow the politician to speak. I will agree the politician for the most part is renowned for waffling and prattling on, but if they waste the time granted, adding additional context that is not required, then you simply say we don't have time anymore, you've now actually wasted it forming an idea or giving context, painting a picture, and failing to answer the question. The term to be a politician is to be somebody that can prattle on without getting to a point. Okay? That's fantastic, by the way. Never giving an actual answer. Maybe it's about time not just the politician but also the media allow them to give the answer so they wouldn't have to or feel the need to prattle on. Maybe if there were preconditions set in the first place. I know I'm ranting here, but I'm genuinely irked by this. I do apologise. But I think if you're going to tell people off for not answering, and you do it so much, then set the preconditions that they must answer the question, or say, I can't answer the question, and simply accept the bad optics from that, instead of the bad optics from them failing to answer the question, which is so common now, I don't think any MP can give a straight answer.